Hello, welcome back. Today we are going to lap some valves and install some valves and valve springs and rocker studs, and that's about it. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. We have ourselves a Ford cylinder head. This is not the cylinder head we're assembling in this video. This is purely for demonstration purposes. We have ourselves a valve, and the valve goes in the head like so. What's going to happen, camshaft's going to rotate, it's going to push on a lifter's going to push on a push rod, which goes through this hole in the cylinder head. That's going to come up here, it's going to push on a rocker arm, and the rocker arm is going to push down on the valve and open the valve. That's going to let air come in through the intake port here, past the valve to the combustion chamber where good things happen. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the valve is going to seal to the cylinder head. You can see there's an edge here on the valve where it's going to mate up against the cylinder head. This surface can get old, it can get crud on it, it can build up carbon, it can do all kinds of gross things that are going to keep the valve just ever so slightly cracked open. That's going to mean it's not going to seal very well, you're going to have poor compression and bad things happen. We are going to use our valve grind compound to make these two surfaces match. So we're going to put it right in between them, and then we're going to spin it with a power drill. The valve grind compound is going to give just a little bit of grit to clean up the surface so that they are very well matched, and so it seals properly. Basically a low buck valve job. If you take it to a machine shop, you're going to do a 3-angle or a 5-angle cut, and they have very precise machinery that's going to cut exactly the same angles into the valve and into the seat for the valve. We're not taking it to the machine shop, we're doing it in our backyard. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to get not quite as good, but very close to the same result. So we got our threaded rocker studs, and they're going to thread into the head, but the only issue is they have a bit of a bevel at the bottom, and what that's going to do is it's going to prevent the actual flat part on the bottom of the hex portion from seating against the actual flat part on the cylinder head itself. So we're going to take our step bit, we're going to have to knock out a little bit of the threads at the very, very top, so there's a little bit of room for that to sit down into so it can actually seat properly. Some more sketchy machining. All right, our valve spring setup, these are different parts, so they don't necessarily go together the same way, but they're all the right parts, so they'll work for demonstration purposes. Our valve spring setup consists of 3 parts. We have our spring, we have our spring hat, and then we have our 2 keepers. The way it works, valve sits in the head, the spring goes on top of the head, so the head is in between the valve and the spring here. The hat goes on top here, and the 2 keepers go down in there. And both of these keepers have a little tiny groove on them that sits down in that little tiny channel right there in the valve. Let's see if we can put this on here, set those in there. So now you can see we can hold this up like this. And the spring is going to be constantly pushing upwards, and so that's going to be a solid lock there. Do just to make sure we're all good is we're going to set this head up overnight upside down, and we're going to fill these ports with a little bit of fluid Here we go. We put some ATF in all of our holes, and we're going to let it sit overnight and see if it stays. And if it stays and the valves are sealed, then we're good. And if it doesn't, then we're fucked and we start over.
1 day later.
Ladies! What's cooking, big man? Looks like we did okay. Alright, so we're using the same sealant here to seal our rocker studs, because some of them go into cooling jackets. At a real machine shop, you'd have this head measured super tight and clamped down on a table and drilled with the drill press and tapped with the probably drill press, and you end up with a crazy extreme precision. We did this shit in our fucking backyard with hand tools, and look at how straight all those studs ended up. I mean, there's some deviation, but not a lot. I'm proud of that. That came out really good. On to the next head. Here we are. Here's our finished cylinder head, and we have 2 of them. So we've got new valve springs, retainers, keepers, and valve stem seals in there. And we also have our threaded rocker studs installed here for all of the RPM and valve control that you could ever want. We lapped all the valves, we drilled out the chamfer, then we cleaned the cylinder heads, then we installed the valve stem seals, then we installed the springs, then we installed the rocker studs. Thanks for watching. If you learned something, post a comment. If you didn't learn anything, ask a question. Leave a like. See you next time.